In our last episode with Torrey Smith, the CEO of Endiatx, we explored the innovative strides that this company is making in the medical field. They are crafting a pill-sized cameras aimed at the early detection of stomach cancer. Our conversation touched on the early days, the growth journey, and the future of Endiatx. Today, Torrey shares his perspective on entrepreneurship, team building, and the art of choosing the right partners, among many other things. Stay tuned. I can't agree more. You mentioned something when you were saying the FDA. Can I ask you, first, how do you navigate your relationship with FDA? How do you work with FDA? And where are you at right now when it comes to FDA approval?
We are extremely proud to actually have a date on the calendar to meet with FDA representatives and discuss PillBot for the very first time. So that's coming up in December. And this is a critical one because we're targeting a class 2 regulatory pathway. Could be 510K, could be de novo. You know, it's sort of maybe somewhere in between, and we'll get their guidance on what makes the most sense. But our hope is to put together a plan that could have us treating patients as an FDA cleared company in 2026. So that's going to be our basic goal to achieve that date. And when we meet with FDA in December, we get a chance to ask a few questions. And so we need to ask the most potent questions to get the most appropriate feedback. We need to ask the scariest questions first so that they can actually help guide us. Questions like, wait a minute, you said you're going to put lithium batteries in the human body, right? That's a very interesting conversation. And we really want to meet with FDA and talk about lithium chemistry and how we think that we can do it in a safe and appropriate way. But then also using that, enable countless other devices and technologies that might follow us to use that same approach as well, because there's a tremendous enabling force in modern battery chemistry that's going to enable all kinds of wonderful life-saving technology inside the human body. And we're not exactly pioneering that, but we do expect that to be a central theme as we work with the FDA personnel. Other questions are, we are actually swallowing every day or every couple of days prototypes that use 3D printed plastic. And it's amazing what we've been able to do. You can see in the background for me, there's a whole row of pretty interesting 3D printers. Yes. Some of which are not actually very, very expensive at all, right? A couple $1,000s and you're off to the races. We want to meet with FDA and basically show them our own cytotoxicity results and basically say, is there a world where we might be able to put 3D printed material into the human body, not just in the dental format where it's common in the world of dentistry to use 3D printed material, but can we go a step further? And so we would need early feedback from FDA because we can certainly do injection molding if that was a real problem, but it's amazing to be on the absolute cutting edge of manufacturing technology, and we would very much love to be to basically leverage the latest and greatest tech. The other thing we want to ask FDA is, are you excited about robots in the body? Like later today we're going to do a flight test, and I've been asked by my RegClean quality experts, Lindsay Consulting. They're like the queens of RegClean quality in the Bay Area. I've been asked to shoot a video that shows the robot swimming. Can it really exceed 15 minutes? I think we've flown one for 45 minutes, right? But can you actually achieve the metrics that we're writing down on these application documents? I would like to show members of the FDA team what we're doing with PillBot. And honestly, as a founder, I would love to just get their basic response, do you think this is cool? Is this the kind of platform that if we can demonstrate safety and efficacy and appropriate use case, do you see this becoming part of the health tech landscape and hopefully a foundation for further tech? So with pre-sub in December, we've got clinical trials in New Zealand on the calendar with Dr. Cam Shower over in New Zealand, close friend of Vivek Kumbari from Mayo Clinic. It's very exciting to think that we could have safety and efficacy data in only a few months. But with all that being said, my team is working around the clock. Sometimes they're sleeping here at the facility. It's like a constant hackathon getting the code base functional and stable. We've recently made the transition from using laptops to control Pillbot, where now we're actually just using our iPhones to control the device.
Really?
And you're holding a supercomputer in your pocket. You might as well use it, right?
Wow, that's very creative. Like, I never thought about this. And like, it's just like, it's like playing Xbox in human body.
we use Xbox controllers, right? It's a very intuitive way to move things around. But we're very agnostic to the end use control input, right? So
Gotcha.
if you're an old school gastroenterologist and you want a controller that looks like an endoscope controller, no problem, right? We can map our control algorithms almost it's trivial, honestly. You could plug it in and it should work. I'm not sure if there are game controllers that look like endoscopes. So if someone really asked for one, we could make one. We would hope they would consider an Xbox controller because it's off the shelf. You could use any one you want. You could borrow one from your kids.
Exactly.
Our tech should be able, in an agnostic fashion, to let you use any interface you want. I'm hoping that a basic touchscreen app on your iPhone or Android in time, but you pick a platform and roll out first. I'm hoping that a basic touchscreen app on a cell phone is actually effective and easy to control Pillbot, because that just means that for some patients, you've taken an entire ecosystem, which, imagine a hospital. It's like a whole city block of all this equipment. You've taken, what it took to get patients physically to and from that hospital. You're dematerializing the 20th century into this beautiful 21st century of digital health. We're just trying to say that those ones and zeros can go beyond the human skin, with technology like tiny robots. I think that digital health could take on a whole new meaning.
I can't agree more. Like, this is very exciting space. And when you were talking also, you mentioned that your team is working around the clock on building this technology. I can see them in real time. It's there. Can I ask you now, like, for founders and entrepreneurs who are watching us, and how did you grow your team?
So that's your number one value, that you can have as a founder, is to have a founding team. The person you see in the background right now is my co-founder, James. James has been with me longer than anyone else on the team. And what James is doing right now is he is by hand making tiny, tiny, tiny coil springs out of stainless steel. And he's gold plating them using acid and a power supply and a bunch of information that he got on YouTube yesterday. And so we mentioned gold plating yesterday, and we're actually gold plating today. But James has been with me, since we incorporated in March of 2019. The way that we built our team was, we were all kind of Silicon Valley deep tech engineer types. My background is aerospace, but with many years of medical device design. James is a hardcore machinist. His degree is actually in photography. And when I met him, he was making beautiful like automata and like crazy engineered artworks. Other members of our team, like Dr. Lubke from Google X, when I met him, he was sending balloons into the stratosphere, and they were surfing stratospheric currents and changing their altitude in order to surf on currents going in different directions over South America and I think parts of Africa. But I basically said, you've put so many satellites into outer space. Would you like to come to inner space with me? And the one thing that our team had in common was we had all worked together building giant Tesla coils out in the desert. And you could kind of think of it as like a bunch of engineers in Silicon Valley. Each one of them has a day job, but many engineers consider themselves creative people, and there's usually sort of an overabundance of creativity. And when you get enough engineers together, they usually want to do something crazy together. And so we had, for a number of years, been working on world record-sized Tesla coils, because for some reason we just thought it was a great idea to play giant lightning bolts through a piano. And after we had become known internationally for that, and actually left the country and it's had some of our work featured in the Smithsonian Institution, we were all very proud of our work sort of in the tech art world. But we decided, if we can do this in our spare time and have this much fun, what could we do if this was our full-time job, right? What could we accomplish together if we weren't meeting on nights and weekends when we were exhausted? But what if we were meeting on Monday morning, bright and early, with the whole week in front of us, right? And rest behind us. And that's when we realized that what you do is you come up with the best idea that you have, the thing that's the most inspirational, not the easiest idea, but the most inspirational, the brightest torch, and pick that idea and incorporate a company. And if you need to ask for help, well, that is when you can turn to the wonderful, beautiful world of accelerators, right? And so we went to an accelerator called the Founder Institute, which is proudly prominent amongst others, such as Techstars or Singularity University or Y Combinator, or the Creative Destruction Lab that we're proud to be a part of now, or MedTech Innovator that also gave us guidance, right? There's this huge ecosystem to help founding teams take their ideas and, leave their day job behind so that they can actually go pro.
Gotcha. Is there a specific rule or rules like that you follow when you hire people? Do you have like specific principles, or do you just trust your gut feeling?
This is a really, really important question. Because we make robot pills and swallow them and we drive them around inside our stomachs, often live, at live events, in public, or, sometimes we'll put the live feed up on LinkedIn. And, we are obviously, very shamelessly trying to evangelize this new world that we're trying to create, right? We're very typical in Silicon Valley fashion for that. And, I hope people can have a little bit of fun with us as they see us on this adventure. We attract many different types of people. And I would say that there's a line that starts to get drawn, that can sort of help people to understand, would a tiny startup like Endiatx be appropriate for you or not? The line comes down to, are you the type of, let's say if you're doing software, right? Are you a software engineer who really loves knitting together pieces of code that other people have written? Right? Do you feel like you're the master of playing Legos with existing blocks of code? Please don't come to Endiatx because that philosophy works extremely well when you have the full power of the modern 21st century internet at your disposal, right? Like the massive websites like Facebook or X, right? Or Amazon. These are interfaces that are dealing with billions of people. And the code bases for them are enormous. And the compute resources for those exist on huge server farms. But please understand that the entire Endiatx code base needs to function in a sense, on a $35 little robot that might be deep inside a human body. And the compute resources that we have access to are so minimal. We don't have huge microcontrollers with tons of RAM and tons of cycles, right? Most of the hardest work we do is on FPGAs, which is, you don't program them in even like C++. Like FPGA work is done in Verilog or VHDL. Like these are like arcane code bases that maybe 1% of software engineers even really understand what that code would look like. And then a small fraction of those engineers would actually have any interest in doing that work. I mean, it's hard, right? If you're a mechanical engineer and you're interested in robot pills, well, that's wonderful. But understand that, you can't just design something on the computer. Like no matter how good it looks in SolidWorks or Onshape or Fusion 360, like any of those are all excellent packages, right? But there's the world of the computer, and then you can see behind me is the world of the shop, right? Like we have Bridgeport Mills, we have a pantograph milling machine that dates to 1954 here, right? We have hard-hinge lathe from the 70s. If you are going to call yourself an engineer at Endiatx, I expect you to be deeply passionate on the design side, but then just as deeply passionate on the make it side. And so, you know, don't sketch this thing on a whiteboard. You know, I want to come in on Monday morning, and I want to find my intern passed out on the floor with chips, you know, stainless steel chips in his hair, holding this beautiful creation that he made on Sunday, because he made it on Sunday knowing that, you know, if I caught him working on it, I probably would be upset, you know, because I have 10 things I've asked him to do, right? But he's got this burning project that he just couldn't not work on. And so when you actually put in the late midnight hours and you build the thing that no one told you was possible, and that in fact everyone prohibited you from doing, when you actually put that thing in someone's hand, that changes everything. All of a sudden, that is what the company needs to work on. And that's usually what becomes the patented IP. And that intern is who I was, you know, at the beginning of my medical device journey. And we here at Endiatx are looking for people who have a desire to make their life count, right? Like we have, as mammals, perhaps 1 billion heartbeats, something on the order of 1 billion heartbeats. And I'd like to think that the work that we're doing with Endiatx is meaningful enough that when we spend ourselves, literally spend ourselves building it, that it's worth it, you know? And I feel like it is, because if we can show the world that you can operate a tiny robot inside the human body, I mean, what kind of a future follows that? I would have to think it's a cool, fun future. I'm just hoping that before too long, someone comes along and gets up onto a stage and pitches an idea, and they use Pillbot as the example of the boring, tired old establishment, right? And they say, you know, we live in this boring world, the tyranny of the lack of performance of robot pills. Torrey and his lithium batteries are only working for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. Behold, the nuclear powered brain surgery robot, you know, smaller than the head of a pin, right? I want to see that founding team proudly get up onto a stage, pitch their tech. You know, they'll face challenges just like we have. But my perspective is, you know, we'd like to make a contribution. We would love to hold this torch. You know, it's such a privilege to hold the torch, like many founders know. There will come a time, however, when our torch is not as bright as it used to be, and someone else has a better, more ambitious idea. And when that time comes, I desperately hope that I will be able to support that founder and let them take the stage, right? Because that's the best of humanity, is when we let the best and brightest of us, you know, rally a team and change the world. And so I think today is that, honestly, I really do feel that Pillbot has come into its own, and we are entering the time of Pillbot for a little bit. But, you know, let's wonder what tomorrow's going to bring, because that's the world that I think we all deserve to live in.
Wow, that's very inspiring and touching. And you mentioned lots of like deep things. It's finding the right people with the right work ethics, and putting them in the right spot. And I really think what I learned the most here is like the thing that touched me the most since the beginning of the interview till now. You talk about competition or people who might compete with you in a similar space, but they have different edge or different way of approaching the market. They have different market, but you are bringing those people, you are talking about them, and you are happy to see the advancement of this technology. You're not thinking about, okay, so I'm going to go into this, I'm going to make this company, I'm going to make a profit. You are thinking about making a difference. And I think that's what makes great founders different from, there are some people who find something, start up a company, they sell it, they make money, they are happy with that life. I have nothing against them. but there are those who make a difference. And I strive to be one of them, and I see that in you.
Well, thank you. I remember there was a time when, for example, I might walk around a shopping mall, and I do remember as a younger kid, sometimes looking into stores and kind of seeing things like consumer products and wishing that I could purchase them. And, maybe if I couldn't, I would feel sad because I wanted to have that thing. But it didn't take me too long to go through this change where I just started walking around the world and I would see a car and I would think, that's not how I would design a car. Why would they make a car like that? And I start to see clothing and I'm like, I don't like that clothing. I start to see brand names and I'm like, that brand means nothing to me. What about the Torrey brand? And I finally just start to realize, like, my biggest pleasure in life is just having the freedom to dream up ideas and make them real and share those things with anyone that's interested, right? To me, that's like standing in the brightest light, you could ever imagine. And so to be able to be meeting you today, with this 9,000 square foot engineering paradise lair behind me and this deep tech team that's, doing their best to work in spite of me taking up the best space. It's such an incredible privilege, right? And, we do hope to be a part of this community and to contribute to it. And we absolutely hope that we are giving credit and support to others in this space, because when it's all said and done, we did say that we wanted to help human lives, right? Like many of us started these companies because we lost family members. And so, we can't bring back those family members, but there's such a good chance we might be able to help someone else's, right?
Exactly.
And so that's what we're waiting for at Endiatx. I don't care if it takes like 10,000 patients screened or who knows, but at some point, we'll get a call from a doctor, and the doctor's going to say, hey, we caught an early cancer today, and I think we're going to cure it. And just wanted you to know that because, Pillbot made it easy to go find it. And, this is the kind of person that we would just never would have looked at. Right. And the metrics for us, it's probably not going to be 1 for 1, right? I don't know how many Pillbots are going to have to go through people before you get one of those magical moments, but that magical moment is why this team is just unwilling to give up, even though, the things that we're doing can be quite hard at times.
Wow. I'm speechless. Going back to the tips for founders and startup founders. So one of the things I heard recently is a comment I read that you usually, or as a startup founder, you have to seek funding when you don't need it. What do you think about this and what your experience is like?
Well, ultimately, we all have a choice about what we do with our lives and how we spend our limited and blessed life, right? This finite thing that we are gifted, like it or not, right? It's this finite thing. Here we are. What are you going to do with it? It's your choice. It's all your choice. That's the most powerful thing is, you may not have control over many things, but you certainly have control over your choices if you choose to. And so a founder needs to choose in what environment do they want to bring out their idea. And the question of small, medium, and large ideas comes up. And I would hope that most of us have dreams of large ideas, right? Like, I would love to build a giant robot spider and ride it around with 40 of my friends. I think that would be so cool. Got some good sketches for it. That's a big idea. We'll talk about that in some future interview. Then you have medium ideas, and then you have small ideas. And it's okay. I test small ideas all the time. I love drawing. I love sketching things. And, I'm not going to make all of my ideas real. But I would challenge founders not to get trapped by a medium-sized idea. Because if you do something medium-sized, like say you want to build a train set in your garage, a model train set, but it's going to be the best train set ever. It's going to have planes landing on a runway. There will be all these cars and many different tracks and mountains and villages. That's a cool project, but it's medium sized because it fits in your garage. The problem is you will spend all your time on that. You will spend all your money on it. But when it's all said and done, you're going to do that medium-sized project alone. And once in a while, someone will come into your garage and you'll light up because you get to share with them this wonderful thing you made. But then they'll leave and then you'll be sitting there alone with this thing. And there's a chance that by the time you realize there was another path, you might be an old person at that moment, right? And you might ask yourself, what happened to your other dreams? So let's get a little bit scared here. Think about the biggest idea you have. For me, just a few years ago, it was I want to make tiny robots and I want to put them in the human body and I want to do clinical good with them. That's a small device, but it's a very big idea. And the interesting thing about a big idea is you can, in fact, inspire people to join you. People will come from all over the world to join in an adventure for a huge idea. People will come out of the woodwork to fund you. Now, you may have to find them. You may have to put in years of effort, but people will fund you if you have a big enough, inspiring idea. And so my message to founders is you want to choose the ideas that are truly inspirational and truly disruptive to what we know as normal. Because if the idea you're working on is relatively easy, there's a good chance 10,000 other people are also working on a very similar version of it. And you might spend years working on it only to find someone else step right in front of you with a slightly better version of it. And gosh, that would be so frustrating, right?
Exactly.
And so the advice would be, get out there on the cutting edge where it's really scary and where you feel alone. Because once you really start to feel alone with an idea, just look to your left and to your right, and you're going to find your team right there behind you, like bracing you, forcing this thing into reality because they were inspired by how exciting this adventure is. So you have to use the power of inspiration as a counterpoint to all of that fear, because a bright torch in a very dark space is going to attract people.
Wow. I can't agree more. I think this phrase, like, I heard this a lot. And although it's easier said than done, but I can't agree more with this. Because like you're going to spend the same time executing medium-sized idea versus huge-sized idea. So why you don't spend this time executing something bigger than you and making a difference and creating more meaningful life?
There was this time when we were working on that lightning machine, the Tesla coil, to make the sparks.
Yeah, tell me.
And it was not my idea to make the Tesla coil. My friend Dan had that idea, and he said, "Torrey, I want to build this giant Tesla coil. Can we do that?" And I was like, "Okay, well, tell me more. What's giant?" And he said, 5 feet tall. And I thought, wow, that's pretty big. And he said, "You're the engineer. Could you make the aluminum toroid at the top of the Tesla coil that the sparks come out of?" And he said, "I'll be working on the electronics." And I said, "Sure. Okay, I'll go work on the aluminum toroid." And, I went to the metal shop and I started beating on metal and aluminum. And I very quickly realized that's a difficult shape to make by hand. I found this machine owned by this company, and there were only 5 machines in the world that come from South Korea. And one of them was in San Jose in Silicon Valley. And these machines take giant spools of steel tape, and they cut the sine wave down the center of the tape. And you get these 2 tapes coming off of varying width, and they do a spiral winding process. And what they make are the world's best HVAC ducting, to ventilate buildings. And instead of like weird, sharp 90-degree corners, it's like a perfect, toroidal arc, right? Like a donut, a perfect, smooth, circular cross-section. And I asked the owner of the company, because he was very interested in this seemingly young engineer. Let's just say I identify as young, wandering around his warehouse, asking all these questions. And I said, "Sir, could you feed this machine that is unique and you probably risked your entire finance to purchase? You probably risked your company when you bought this machine." And he's like, "Yes, I did." could you feed this machine aluminum instead of steel? And he said, yeah, honestly, there's no reason why we couldn't do that. And so we were on, and he said, you'd have to purchase this giant spool of aluminum that comes on the big truck. And I said, do you take American Express? That's the other thing, folks. You have to put all of your money in all the time, right? Full commitment. So these guys really liked us. And the only thing was the machine had adjustability. And it turned out that the little toroid that would be part of this 5-foot Tesla coil was just one of the many sizes this machine could make. And so I asked the obvious question, how big can this thing go? And they said, oh, it would be a toroid about 8 feet, in diameter. And I called up my friend Dan and I said, Dan, could you run the numbers on what if we made this Tesla coil with an 8-foot toroid? And I could hear the clicking of, keystrokes, and he was running electronic simulations, and he starts laughing. And he's like, I'm going to need you to go to Oakland because we're going to be picking up a reel of copper wire that weighs almost 500 pounds, and it's going to come on a ship. And our little capacitors, instead of being like little cylinders that are like the size of your fingertip, turned into like giant suitcase capacitors, custom built in China from this crazy weird company. And this Tesla coil stopped being like an arbitrarily large thing, and it turned into, what is the biggest Tesla coil that we can possibly build? We had no idea how we would stand it up or support it. We barely even knew how to transport it. Like, we designed this huge, crazy thing with no idea for the logistical footprint. And it took us 3 years to get it working. And we went through plenty of challenges and spent, all of our money for several years on this thing. But what we noticed was that as we were working on this in nights and weekends, we were very quickly surrounded by just crazy, interesting people. Some of the smartest people in the world, many of whom now work for Endiatx as co-founders, many of whom are now on the Endiatx cap table as early angel investors or venture capitalists who, just happen to like to build Tesla coils in their spare time. And basically, it was this project where we decided to do a crazy big thing that really taught us the value of big, bold ideas.
Dreaming big.
And so with Endiatx, the dream is big, but the support is far bigger. And that's the magic that I hope founders can soak up, is that if your idea is suitably meaningful and will change the world in a really huge way, then, no matter where you come from or kind of what background you might have, you should feel a sense that the universe wants this thing to be real, right? And people will help you do it. But if you're the founder, you have to hold the torch yourself and just understand, that torch burns bright and it burns hot and it's painful at times. But I remember what it was like to just be a guy with a job, and I would never, ever trade the old world and the sense of comfort for this new world and the sense of adventure. It's really like night and day.
Wow, this is one of the best interviews I ever had. Like, the conversations that it took us longer than I expected. It's been a lot. It's been longer, but like, I'm enjoying it a lot. I do still have tons of questions, but like, I know I took lots of your time, and I really appreciate you being here. Is there anything else, like any last words, advice for people who are listening, physicians, founders, engineers, researchers, you want to say?
Yeah, the most important thing is a message to prospective founding teams, to founders. My guess, speaking directly to you now, is that you have some idea in your head, some beautiful idea. And you probably also have a reality wrapped around you, a family and friends, probably a job or maybe a university program, maybe some mixture of those. And many times you're going to feel very hemmed in and controlled and trapped by the constraints of your world. You're going to have your dreams and you're going to have your reality, and you're going to feel like there's this impossible gulf between the two. And it feels like an infinite distance. And you're going to feel intense imposter syndrome because you're going to see podcasts and you'll see interviews. Like, you'll see the great Elon Musk landing rockets from space. I mean, wow, that's cool. Sometimes I wish he would be a little bit more quiet on social media, but my goodness, look at those amazing engineering projects, right? I'm such a huge fan of the work they do. You're going to look at the successes of people out there in the world on the cutting edge, and then you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to feel humiliated, and you're going to hate yourself. You're going to judge yourself. You're going to be your own worst critic because you, unlike anyone else, truly knows the depths of your procrastination, right? You know just how bad you are, right? You need to understand that anyone who you are looking up to or excited about or inspired by was looking in the exact same mirror at some point in their life, right? Before Elon ever had those incredible successes, he was this guy in college in Canada studying physics, I think, and his roommate Adeo
in Kingston
and Elon, right? These were, kids that were, off in school trying to learn how to do cool stuff. And Adeo actually helped me launch Endiatx, right? And some of that network has gone on to support many founders. But there was a time when our heroes were just young kids, and it doesn't matter what the background was. People have their challenges, right? From any walk of life, people have demons and they have challenges, right? Just like you, the founder, the prospective founder, has challenges. But the thing is that no one can take from you if you choose not to let them is they can't take your dreams and your ambitions. And so you have to be willing to take that first step. And I wasted at least 4 years trying to found Endiatx, thinking that I had to know everything. I'm a damn good mechanical designer. I'm so proud of my SolidWorks capabilities, but my goodness, the 21st century is not a SolidWorks century. It's a code century. This is a digital century. I was feeling like an anachronism. I was feeling like some irrelevant old man, even in my 20s. I was thinking, man, I don't have the right skills. And I spent years trying to learn how to code more, and I took circuit classes. I felt like if I'm going to found a tiny robotics company, I have to do everything. And what I really got done was nothing, although I sketched a lot of Endiatx logos in the margins of my notebooks for the jobs that I was supposed to be working. And what I finally learned is that you can ask for help. You can recruit friends. You can say, hey, I'm good at this. Can you help me with that? You can actually ask the world, the universe, for help. You don't have to fund it yourself. You can inspire people to invest in you. In fact, it's better to be able to demonstrate that you can draw investment than it is to just burn up whatever money you have lying around. I mean, you probably have burned it already, right? But being able to get other people excited enough to write you a check, that's a big part of this adventure, right? And so my real message to the prospective founder is that I understand what it looks like in the mirror when you look back at yourself, but just understand we were all there once. We're here to help. We want to help you. And you must never, ever commit the crime of waiting to launch your company until you think that you're comfortable and ready to do so. Because when the time comes that you are comfortable and ready to launch your company, you're going to be old and your idea will be 20 years obsolete. So start it tomorrow. Start it with the $5,000 that we started Endiatx with. $5,000. We bought a 3D printer. We bought some Raspberry Pi electronics off of Amazon, and we built a American football-sized prototype. We called it PoolBot, and we flew it around inside swimming pools until people wrote us some checks. And using the money we raised from PoolBot, we made Fish Tank Bot. And from there, we went to thumb sized and raised more money. And from there, we went to fingertip size. And here we are now. And now we have this team that represents all of the skills that I felt I had to have all inside my own skull all those years ago. I was so wrong. All I needed to do was ask for help and inspire people to join.
You're going to make me quit my job tomorrow, my friend. Wow. Yeah, I think it's very true. It's very true. I just like, I've heard this so many times from so many great people, and I'm hearing it from you. And you can't do it all by yourself. Like, you have to ask for help. you have to ask for help. I'm still like, I have a lot to ingest today. I have a lot to digest today, and like I learned a lot. I don't want to take more of your time. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I think there's a lot of food for thought in this hour and a half. And thank you so much again. I really, really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's a genuine pleasure to be here and to be able to share a little bit of this adventure. Thank you so much.